Using COVID as an excuse, the governor of California has said that in November he wants to send an absentee ballot to every Californian, every registered voter in the Golden State. The notion being that then they don't have to go to their polling place and everybody can be safer from the coronavirus. When asked about this by Gallup, Americans 64% to 34% favor that. They think the convenience, the idea that they don't have to go to the polls, is a good idea. So nearly two-thirds of Americans say that, yeah, I'm okay with that. For the most part, they are independent and Democrat, and they tend to be younger. Older folks, 65 and older, it only has 55% favorability. But then you ask them, will that lead to more fraud? And 49% say, yep. 29% say it will result in the same amount. And Republicans more concerned about it than others. But Democrats, 27% of Democrats, 1 in 4 say, yeah, it will lead to more fraud. And then they were asked a great deal or a fair amount. And 40% of Democrats said, yeah, a fair amount or a great deal more fraud. And all Americans, 60% of them say, yeah. So what is it that we favor it, and yet we're willing to accept a great deal or a fair amount of additional fraud? Have we lost our minds? And are we willing to sacrifice election security for convenience and out of fear? Ruth Johnson is the former Secretary of State, now a state senator out of Oakland County, and she joins us live this afternoon. Ruth, I can't figure it out.
Those are odd statistics. I hadn't heard them, but Michigan's far different than other states. We have local home rule, and we already have, if you would like to, you can vote no reason absentee. So it's nothing new for Michigan. What I don't understand is why there's some Democrat operatives that want to take away the option from voters to actually go and vote if they want to, because we already have what's so-called vote by mail. We have that already, and the local clerks, all 1,603 of them, send out ballots to anyone that would like one. All you have to do is ask. And I prefer to go to the polls and vote. When I was county clerk of Oakland County, we had a situation where in a primary, you have to vote all Republican, all Democrat, and a man named Aldo Vagnosi. He had a magnetic personality and was the mayor in Farmington, and he ran, and 30,000 people crossed over from Republicans and voted for Aldo, and every single one of those votes for everyone that they voted for was thrown away. So I think we don't want to take away the opportunity for those of us that want to go vote on the tabulator. You can watch it, and if for some reason there's a mistake, that tabulator will say there's a mistake and you need to redo it. When you send it in absentee, all 30,000 of those ballots, none of them counted for anything on there unless it was a ballot proposal, but not for one candidate did they get a vote because there was a switchover.
I want to get your reaction to something that happened last week on the Frank Beckman Show. Chris Renwick was filling in, had a gentleman call in from East Jordan. He said, I just went up to my cottage, and I found this ballot in my mailbox for a woman that hasn't lived here in years. And he said, I think she's moved down to the Southwest, and I think she's dead. And yet, because Secretary Benson had sent out all those absentee ballots, they weren't requested. She just sent them out because that was one of those areas where they're having the May 5th primary. It ended up in his box. Now, he could have filled it out. He could have tried to forge her signature, and he could have sent it back. But he didn't. Instead, he mailed it to Chris and I, and we followed up on it. I found the woman was living in New Mexico. I can't find out whether she's dead or not, but I can tell you that all of her numbers have been disconnected. So I don't think she's very active if she's still with us. But I guess my question is, Ruth, how easy would it have been for him to fraudulently file that?
Well, that's why I do not support, as a past Secretary of State and as the chair of elections for the Senate, having the Secretary of State send it out to every single person on the qualified voter file, because we saw dead people who received absentee ballot applications with postage paid return envelopes from the Secretary of State. That would not happen when you follow the regular course, which is to have the local clerks provide those for the people that ask for them. And people have moved to other states years ago, received them. We even saw kids that were 16 years old that received them. all of these types of problems increase opportunities for fraud. So we had a number of other issues, too, with the May election, the way it was done, which was quite unusual. Like I said, you can vote absentee if you would like to already in Michigan. You shouldn't be taking away an option for people to use a tabulator. And the way it is
But to
now,
get back to my original question, Ruth, just my original question, if he had submitted that, if he had tried to forge the signature, are our clerks, especially knowing that you have same-day registration now and they're handling additional absentee ballots, will the checking of those signatures against the signature in the voter rolls be as robust and be as nitpicky as it needs to be?
Well, there's only so many people that can do it. And the other thing that happened, a lot of good things with Prop 3, but one thing that was kind of slid in there that people didn't understand is that we never get to see that person. It used to be we need to see a person, a warm body, once when you wanted to register to vote or vote. Once you did that, you could vote absentee. Now, we never see a warm body ever. Everything is done on paper. And the clerks, we have one city that averages about 100,000 absentees. It would be very difficult to check signatures. Plus, you have people that maybe have had a stroke or have carpal tunnel or have broke a finger or an arm. It's not an easy task to look at that many signatures, and I would say that in some communities, many of them, they simply don't have the staff to do it. So you are opening up opportunities for fraud when you let the local clerks do it like we have for decades. It's worked very well, and you really don't have that problem then.
But your level of confidence is in terms of the voter rolls, so that I mean, I talked to a friend of yours and a friend of mine about this who's a clerk in one of the areas here, and she goes in and she looks at the rolls before every election, and she will kick out those that she knows have been asking her to send to an absentee ballot out of state for a number of years to say, look, are you a permanent resident or aren't you? And if they say, well, yeah, kind of, then she makes sure that they're taken off the rolls. But are most township supervisors and township clerks that aggressive and that on the ball?
Well, it's the clerks, and they try to be, and many of them are. But when you get into very large communities, it's all but impossible to do it because there's so many, and there'll be so many more. And we have super clerks that can do that and do it. But a lot of clerks, it's anywhere from difficult to impossible to do it and then chase down the person. And so it is a very difficult thing. I took 1 out of 6 names off the qualified voter file when I was there. Most of them were dead. We had over 500,000 dead people. We had over 3,000 non-citizens, and we had over 100,000 people that had moved and were voting in another community. Keeping that qualified voter file cleaned up is a very difficult task. But when you send out to all of them, and you must keep them on there, even if they register as Donald Duck, which people have done, you must keep them on for 2 federal elections. It really does open us up to the potential of people not doing things how they should.
Well, it was only 1 ballot from East Jordan, but boy, it raises a lot of questions, Ruth, and we thank you for helping us answer some of them. You take care, Senator. It's always a pleasure.
You too, guys.